Alright, hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to take a look at some hidden gem games across a few different systems for the rail shooter genre. What's a rail shooter, you ask? Well, if you consider yourself a fan of the Star Fox series, or even the Space Harrier series, you know exactly what kind of games we're going to be looking at today. And I went through my collection and I picked out a few games that hopefully you guys have never heard of before, because as much as I would have loved to have checked out and shown you guys games like Panzer Dragoon, or even Sin and Punishment on the Wii, heck, even Kid Icarus Uprising on the 3DS is an amazing rail shooter in certain parts. I just wanted to pick out some games that hopefully you've never heard of before, so what do you say we get started with the first game? Here we go. Vanark is a PlayStation 1 exclusive that's sure to please fans of spaceship rail shooters. The first thing that you'll notice when you start playing this game is that it controls really well. It's responsive, the ship goes where you want it to, and that's important because it can be pretty challenging, especially on some of the bosses. And speaking of bosses, this game has some incredible enemy design and level design, including volcanoes that are erupting, swamps that are filled with all kinds of creatures, and of course the explosions in this game are just oh so satisfying. One of the most unique things about Vanark is the fact that it tries to incorporate a lot of story into the game as a way to pad out its length. This is not necessarily a good thing because the story is boring and mundane, and the sections where you have to go around trying to find the trigger points to advance the game are very boring. Luckily, most of this is skippable, but it's kind of fascinating to see a game like this using graphics and controls like a Resident Evil game between its missions. It's sort of a novelty, but it'll wear thin really fast. Luckily though, the regular spaceship levels are a blast to play, and I think that fans of rail shooters, particularly games like Star Fox, will have a lot of fun with this one. Soulstar was released in 1994 exclusively for the Sega CD, meaning that if you want to play this hidden gem, you're going to have to track yourself down a system, but trust me, it's well worth it. The first thing that you'll probably notice about Soulstar is that it has incredible graphics. It uses a rotating and scaling effect with the sprites in the game to give it this really unique feel that very few games were able to pull off correctly in the 90s. You'll be playing through a space level, and you'll see a ship in the background, and as you keep playing, the ship gets closer and closer until you're basically flying into it into another part of the level. It all looks amazing and really makes Soulstar stand out from other games in this genre. And Soulstar does not disappoint in the music section either, considering it is on the Sega CD. It also comes with a full orchestral soundtrack, which fits with the game very nicely. The game definitely can be challenging at times, especially as you try to come to grips with the controls in the free flight sections, but once you overcome that, I think you'll have a really satisfying experience, and a title that is definitely worth owning in your Sega CD library. G-Vector was released exclusively for the Sega Saturn in Japan in 1997, so yes, that means you will have to import it if you want to give it a try. If there's one thing G-Vector is notorious for, that's its level of difficulty. It's going to take you many attempts and tries to defeat its levels and bosses, but it all comes down to memorizing the patterns and learning how to dodge the bullets, which can be a bit overwhelming at some points in the game. Just look at what's happening on screen here and tell me how you would attempt to dodge some of this stuff. But after a while, you get used to it and you realize that G-Vector is not a bad game. It has a good techno soundtrack, it's very colorful and vibrant, there's not too much slowdown, some of the levels are really fast-paced and look pretty darn impressive. Gameplay is fairly simple with just a homing weapon and your typical rapid-fire gun, but don't let that deter you. This is a pretty fun experience, even though it's challenging. I'd say it's worth giving a try. Night Striker S is a Sega Saturn port of a 1993 arcade game also released on the PlayStation 1 in Japan and the Mega CD. This is an essential must-play for fans of the Space Harrier series, especially if you're into the whole 80s style cyberpunk theme, where you can play as a hover car and take down helicopters and robots and all kinds of stuff. There are multiple branching paths, so the game has a lot of replay value in terms of different levels that you can play. Though it reuses the same 5 settings, every level is different in terms of enemy patterns, so there is reason to go back to it after you complete it once. With the sense of speed and scale that this game has, you better believe that the soundtrack is amazing. It's fast, it's techno-y, it just fits the game perfectly, and it really makes it a joy to play through because, well, you kind of feel like a badass as you're going through these levels and taking down the bosses with this car. The game is just flat out fun to play. As if you didn't need just one more reason to get into importing games for the Sega Saturn, hopefully Night Striker is the game that will convince you to do so. Believe me, this is an essential must-play hidden gem for fans of rail shooters. Novastorm was released in 1994 for the PC, Sega CD, PlayStation 1, and 3DO. The only one that I own in my collection is the 3DO version, so that's the one that you're watching here. Now this is an FMV rail shooter that looks very much like Microcosm, which is a really well-known game from the same time period. And Novastorm is basically a no-frills rail shooter with FMV backgrounds. And to be quite honest, it's actually not that great of a game when it comes to gameplay. But why would I choose to highlight it in this video? I'm sure there's people out there like me that absolutely love this time for gaming in the 90s and when CD-based consoles were really in their prime, and we got a lot of games like this. For some reason, I absolutely love the feeling of zipping through these FMV videos in my spaceship, shooting up all the bad guys that are coming at me, and having to dodge obstacles that are basically in the video. Like, you're dodging parts of the video, like when you're going through a cave or something, you're dodging the overhangs, or you're dodging, like, bridges and stuff like that. I don't know, for some reason these games are just so much fun to me, and gameplay-wise, it's really bare bones. And to be honest, after looking at gameplay for the other versions, the 3DO version actually looks like it's the most lacking in terms of visuals and just gameplay itself. If I were to recommend a version for you guys to pick up, check out the PlayStation 1 version. The 3DO version, I would ignore, basically. I mean, don't get me wrong, the game is not terrible. I actually found myself having an absolute blast playing this because they just don't make games like this anymore. I mean, where else can you fight FMV fire phoenixes that come out of a volcano, satellites that are out in the middle of the snow, and weird monsters that live in caves? I mean, it's some crazy stuff. Give it a try, you might just like it. Jinmu Dencho is a PC Engine exclusive released in 1989. As you can tell, this one is for fans of Space Harrier because not only does it look the same, but it also plays very similar. Except this time you play as a samurai where you can slash your sword and get power-ups so that you can shoot projectiles, which are essential for beating the game because without those projectiles, the game is almost impossible to beat. On paper, the concept of the game is actually pretty cool. The style is cool, I like the enemy designs and the graphics, but the gameplay is a little bit sloppy. It uses this mechanic where you can run back towards the screen in order to get items that you missed, and there's platforming segments, but overall it's a little bit hard to pull off and makes the game incredibly hard in some segments, especially at level 3. I think it was made by the devil himself. Despite the game's difficulty and gameplay problems, however, I think it's worth checking out if you're a Space Harrier fan and are willing to put up with some extreme levels of difficulty. Give it a look, you might just like it. Alright guys, that about does it for my Hidden Gems rail shooter video. Hopefully there were at least 1 or 2 games in there that you've never heard of before, and if so, then I've done my job, right? I brought some unknown games to your attention. Well guys, that's about going to do it. Be sure to leave a thumbs up and a comment below if you like this video. Leave suggestions for future Hidden Gems videos because I love making these for you guys. Anyway, thanks for watching.